in with the kidneys. All right. If nobody wants to add anything else, I'm gonna go
If
to.
you see those kidneys, they look like the early stages, the fetal development of a set of twins.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Because when they go through the first stage, they look like a butter bean,
Oh, I see what you're. Holy shit.
right? So the the kidneys are the purifier of the blood. It's a filter, right? And the urine comes out sterile,
Facts.
but when it's exposed to the light, the uric acid converts into ammonium, which contaminates the urine,
Facts. Facts.
right? But as long as it's in the bladder, straight from the kidneys, it's purified, right? So this is when you talking about um, the need of a precious stone, talking about a kidney stone. We also find word kid with the word kidney. Kid meaning the baby goat who's going to grow up to be the great Baphomet. The Baphomet symbol is the goat head, which is also the symbol of the uterus, right? And then it says obvious connection to language web with the German reign. And the German reign was the Reich. In the reign of the Reich, the Fourth Reich was the unknown Reich operation.
Ooh, okay.
So they get caught selling drugs. Now, in the United States, there's a law. It's called a culpability law. If the government solicits you to commit a crime and you commit a crime and the government is your co-defendant, you can't be prosecuted.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes.
Everybody with a dope case, their co-defendant is the US government. Let that sink in. Because the government has been the ones bringing the dope in the whole time.
Distributing it, um, transporting it, delegating what locations to distribute it for, for whatever reasons. Yeah.
If we knew about the opium wars, right? This is what caused Mao Zedong to rise to power. The British was going into China and they was creating what's called opium dens all over the country.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And wars broke out in the transporting of heroin or opium at that time. It wasn't heroin yet.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. So then they had what's called the Opium Wars. The Opium Wars gave birth to something called the French Connection. The French Connection was transporting China white, but in the movie, I think it was cocaine. But cocaine don't come from France or Asia. It comes from South America.
Yeah.
And some of the islands produce the coca leaf too.
Yeah.
Right. Now, while all of this is going on, we over here oblivious. Walking around la-di-da in fool's paradise.
Because remember, most news, when you go abroad, you actually hear more news about your country than you'll hear from inside your country. So we're usually just like, we think have free speech and we can delegate and say things out loud and no, it's everything censored from inside and from outside.
You know, the first time I found out about 9/11, it was a show on a Canadian channel called The Fifth Estate. It's like Nightline or Dateline over here. And about 4 months after 9/11, they did a whole broadcast tracking down everything. That's the first people that I found out was telling us that the government was behind it and it wasn't no hijackers.
That's probably where we got the first leak. And then
Mhm.
also the 7 Israelis, I'm not sure if there were 6 or 7 Israelis that were
In the white van.
celebrating, that was on the news. And when 9/11 went down, all of the floors were Jewish companies, all got a heads up. Obviously, they got the insurance policy, the guy who bought the building right before it happened and got the insurance policy too. Okay. So that's when we found out they were probably the leak, because the person who said they saw the Israelis celebrating, that it was a woman, I think. She
Yeah, they
reported to
was
the
in the
news.
white van. They had
Yeah.
jumped out the white van. Now
Yep.
remember, also white vans came into play in the transporting a massive amount of gold under the tunnels out of the World
Mhm.
Trade Center. One of
When they
them,
got rid of all of, yep, they got they emptied out all of those gold places where they stored the gold. Yeah.
yeah. So one of the trucks, one of the vans, some kind of way was decommissioned in the tunnel, and they left it there, and it was still full of gold.
Mhm. Mhm.
I mean, they was in a hurry to get away. They didn't have time to switch the
To get
gold to the other
everything.
vehicles.
Yep.
So it was also a white van.
Mm.
Then there's another lady who did the controlled demolition investigation.
Oh yeah.
And she found the boxes of explosives, the
At the base.
video footage of from the garage
Mhm.
from before it, like a couple of months before, they was doing midnight repairs all night long after the building was closed for like 3 or 4 months.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and
And then
they
also,
she
you remember
found the boxes and all that. The boxes.
remember the accounts that the firemen, the policemen, the New York City cops, before they totally swept the internet, took it offline, the first thing they said is they heard the booms, the explosions at the base of the building. And
Mhm.
these men would know, because there's no way that a plane would hit the top of a building and it could collapse an entire building, especially with all that steel. It would have to collapse from the base, like any other demolition in New York City.
Mhm. Well, here go the problem too with the plane causing the crash, because the way that we don't know about the Empire State Building got struck by a Cessna back in like the 20s or the 30s. This was before the World Trade Center was built.
Mm.
So because of that, the World Trade Center was built to withstand a direct hit from an airplane on purpose. That's why it had an exoskeleton and then it had an internal tube,
Mhm.
right? So if a plane did run into the building, then they say, well, the fuel from the plane melted the
Yeah,
columns. No, it didn't.
no,
The fuel, jet fuel doesn't burn hot enough to melt steel,
yeah. And when you
but
see
thermite do.
yeah, exactly. But when you see how it fell, you've seen any demolition. I'm a New York girl. You've seen any demolition. You kind of sometimes you get to watch it. The way that the building fell was exactly how a full demolition happens. Nothing was non-uniform. It wasn't as ununiformed. Everything was uniformed in how it fell with any other demolition. Yeah.
You know, the first thing when I was watching it when it was happening, I was like, it don't seem like the building should have fell like that. It seemed like the top should have tipped
It
over.
should have tipped over. It would have cracked over if it was normal, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then the next thing that got my attention that made me say, what the, was building number 7 that no plane hit
And it collapsed.
and
And
it collapsed.
I work down there. So yeah, yeah, yeah. And what's crazy is because you use the propaganda, because remember they build the narrative, they control the narrative, so it's all mind control programming. You know, they perpetually say something over and over again, show you several scenes, tell you what you need to think. Which remember, Richard Pryor said when he was cheating on his girl, he was like, "You gonna believe me, or you gonna believe your lying eyes?" Okay, you know, so people were seeing things that they knew very well weren't exactly how they were describing and constantly repetitiously saying. And then they also used trauma programming because people were so traumatized. New Yorkers didn't know what they were seeing. A lot of family members died. People did not come home. The police officers were in shock. You use the trauma. Trauma is wonderful at compartmentalizing the brain. And that's how you use the MK Ultra is you create a trauma response that compartmentalizes the brain and it takes away from all rationality. So anything that you're programming the brain with is going to be nicely nestled into the part of your brain that accepts it as truth. So
Yeah.
they did a wonderful thing. And meanwhile, no one used the grand, and we don't want to even talk about the Pentagon, which was never hit by a plane. And at the time, I had a friend who was working for the Navy and showed me the image of a missile launcher in the lawn turning directly at the Pentagon, one of their own missile launchers, who hit it. And that's why you never saw an image of a plane on the Pentagon. They never showed it to you because they couldn't show it to you.
They got a sister that was working in the Pentagon. She say when they hit, she seen no evidence of a plane nowhere, no luggage, nothing. But they also, it's a video from a field across from the Pentagon that shows the missiles. It was what they call a Scud missile.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's what hit the Pentagon.
Yeah. I saw the video, but it was taken away and he got in trouble because we weren't supposed to see that. We were just sitting in the car chilling and I saw the image and, the Navy guys already saw it. And remember at the time, all stories weren't together. So no one knew what not to say. Nothing was being held and swept away. So a lot of different stories got out just initially until later when they kind of cleansed the entire internet.
So they gave us what they call 3 knocks to the takeover. Right. The first knock was the World Trade Center bombing in 91. We keep forgetting that.
Yep. We lived there. So
we used to be running around talking about blow up like the World Trade.
That's true. Yeah, and a lot of hip hop references to it. Yeah.
Then the second knock came with the federal building in Oklahoma City.
What year was that?
95.
There's something in between that happened. I forgot the year, but my mother, it was in the 60s, and I don't think people know about it because my mom was working in the Chase building and there was an explosion. It's not on record. People find it after the fact. They blew up part of the Chase building in New York City. I think it was part of their kind of checking to see, testing these areas because she experienced.
Totally possible.
Yeah.
It's totally possible.
Yeah.
But the 3 knocks, they like 5 years apart, roughly.
Oh, yeah. That's pattern.
Right.
Yeah.
So the last one was 9/11. So you went World Trade Center, Federal Building, World Trade Center. 3 knocks. We coming to take over. Who is we? Skull and Bones.
Yeah. Jesuits, Zionists, they're all in that hub, right?
Yeah, they are. All of the secret societies is the only secret is that you don't know what they're doing while they're doing it until it's too late for you to do anything about it.
Because they're contracting all these different subsidiaries. So you think it's this group, when meanwhile it's something else totally different, and the hub is controlling everything from the top.
Yep.
Yeah.
So when we look at CIA sponsored assassinations, you got Patrice Lumumba, you got Maurice Bishop, you got Stephen Biko, you got Laurent Kabila, you got Malcolm, you got DePinto. It's a long list of prominent figures the U.S. government assassinated. In Mexico, you had Emilio Zapata.
That's right.
And I forgot the guy name in Puerto Rico, but they locked him up and tortured him to death. Then you got the guy out of Florida, Leonard Peltier. He's locked up for.
Can I ask you? So it's all in that 15-year period, right? So it's all in this 15-year period. It was a sweep.
Well, this was over the last since like 60.
Okay.
Right. So they run in what they call the long operation, and then you have what's called short-term operations. Right. Short-term operations would be like crack. Crack was a short-term operation. It was not supposed to last longer
long-term effects.
Right. Okay. They do have long-term effects, but like right now, what they calling crack in the streets, that's garbage.
Yeah,
no drug dealer from the 80s would touch that stuff.
No.
Right. Now they come out with the new one now. We got the pink cocaine and
cocaine. Yeah. Form, slick, P. Diddy style,
So and then you have the fentanyl.
You're right. Yeah. That took over that sector.
They keep blaming the people in Mexico for fentanyl.
Absolutely.
They're making it in the laboratories right over there in California.
They got fentanyl labs all in the Midwest. That's why they got a fentanyl problem, and half the Midwest is high, like zombified. Go look at the Midwest, and they have to import brown people to create a narrative as the brown people that's high. And but what they're doing is they importing. They don't tell you, oh, we're taking all the homeless from New York and so on because we just can't. We got to redistribute it. No, you're doing it because they don't want you to know all the looners, the white people that are suffering under their governmental institution of fentanyl, all in those areas.
The government was doing it the whole time. Why would they stop? They make too much money.
That's true.
And they can control too many people.
Mm-hmm.
They more concerned with the control than they are with the money.
Absolutely.
Because from the control, it's going to increase the dividends. Everything that we did naturally, they villainize and criminalize. Mm-hmm. And if they can't villainize it and criminalize it, they demoralize it.
Yes.
Right? We had, the Chiefs had multiple wives when they came over here. Right? Now it's against the law and it's called bigamy.
Oh, is it bigamy? Is that what it's called? Yeah.
That's what it's called.
But they're doing it all in the Midwest. They're marrying, they're marrying the children, the sisters, but they don't call them polygamists, right? They don't call them that.
You call them bigamists. And then not only that, the government, when you get a marriage license, the government is the go-between between the two parties. It's a corporate merger. It don't have nothing to do with people. A marriage license have nothing to do with a marital union of two people.
Well, marriage for a woman is a form of indentured slavery under the terms of this new system.
And that's how we view relationships from the terms of a slave driving mentality. Absolutely. I own you now.
Yeah, sure.
That's not what it was before they came. No. A relationship was a partnership. It was the unification of two clans.
Yeah.
They normally was arranged.
Yes. Yes.
And if they got along, they normally got along because you didn't have all of the outside influences.
And you had support systems. The tribal
had a
support system for women. Women weren't isolated and made to feel like they were engaged in, silent wars in the home. There was a support system, and there was support for the males and for the females. So whenever you have that, there's no sense of subjugation. You don't feel as marginalized or under like tyranny. Yeah.
Go back to Betty Wright. Don't blame Mr. Charlie. Mr. Charlie is just a man, and he's doing the best he can. Right? So she telling you the tribal tradition, and the women used to go to the lady that she thinks she having marital problem. Girl, that ain't no problem. Yeah. Right? That the only reason you making it a problem is because that right in your ear right there, she the one need to go, not your husband. She's single with 15 babies by 7 baby daddies. And she telling you how to run your marriage. And she ain't never been married.
Well, those are usually the ones who are trying to they're trying to destroy what they don't
Girl,
have.
if I was you, I would take that off of that. I wouldn't let no man talk to me like, nah, girl. Go sit your ass down somewhere and get a life. But it like on a personal level, none of that stuff moved me, right? I believe in family and tribe and building up the strength of the tribe by building the intelligence of the tribe's members.
Well, I grew up with that. I grew up with those values from my father and mother and the people we came from. So we know that having a tribal base and having a support system, it's just it's cohesive, you know what I mean? And there weren't, all the women's libs and women liberation really wasn't something that was it was created by the same diabolical Jesuits / Mason. It's from their world that they created the whole women's lib, which really caused more infection within the relationship and dynamics between melanated women and men. Because that wasn't something we really had an issue with.
Liberation is the flip side of the patriarchal coin. Most of us are unaware that most of the women's liberation literature from the 1900s before 1950 was written by men dressed in dresses.
Oh, just like the one on the stages. Yeah.
That's why it don't work for women. It don't work for women.
It's like the brassiere that was created by a man. It just doesn't work.
It's trying to cover up the breasts.
I'm sorry. It just fell out. I try to behave myself. I'm good. Let's created by man. We've been suffering ever since.
Don't forget the bikini.
Okay. You know what I mean? You
That's
know.
where the term
We
bombshell
were
come
butt
from.
naked in Martinique. I have pictures and images of my people. We were happy. We started putting on clothes. They called us savages. We were free. We didn't have to come home from work, taking off all our armor. We didn't have no problems. We're
Look,
happy.
you know why they call women in bikinis a bombshell, right?
Oh, why?
You know, Bikini Island, the first place they had tested the atomic bomb.
What?
Go look it up.
What do you mean? They expand upon that.
Okay, the Manhattan Project was the project to develop the atomic bomb.
Yes.
Okay, first of all, did you know that it wasn't the people they told us invented? They said they attributed the atomic bomb to Einstein based on his theory of relativity and the splitting
Yes.
of the atom. Okay,
Yes.
now that didn't make the bomb. Lloyd Quartermain, he was the physicist who designed the atomic bomb. With his physicist team, they was all melanated.
Say his name again. I know that name. Say it again.
Lloyd Quartermain, nuclear physicist.
Okay.
Okay. Now, once they gave them the design to the bomb, they had to test it. So the first bomb they tested was Bikini Island. That's what the records say.
Okay. Okay.
So now when you see the woman in the bikini, the slang references, she's a bombshell.
Historical references are everything. Oh my God. That is terrible.
This the rabbit hole deep. I don't even think got a bottom to that sucker.
Wow. Anyway, I don't want to keep you all night. We could talk for like days.
Yeah. You wanna to somebody in the chat.
Let's ask questions. You want to talk to people?
Yeah.
You ready? You know, I'm impromptu. You good? Want to ask?
Hey.
Can I ask you a question? I have a friend who asked you a question because she asked a while ago. So she wanted to know, what's your thought on Lucifer?